We are continuing to keep you up to date with all of the headlines coming out of New York City. Take a look at this from the New York Post via X, saying Mayor Adams' longtime confidant Ingrid Lewis Martin allegedly accepted over $75,000 in bribes, bombshell indictments reveal. Joining us now to talk more about this, the latest when it comes to that case against New York City Mayor Eric Adams, is Fox 5 New York's Lisa Evers. And Lisa, it just continues all the information we're getting.
Corral, when we first heard, when this news first broke, we were all shaking our heads in the newsroom going, again, because this is the second round of indictments. She resigned, Ingrid Lewis Martin resigned from the mayor's administration in December when she was, and then she was subsequently indicted on these similar types of pay for play charges. And then what happened this week was just some of the allegations are just staggering. Like a developer makes a phone call to her, and then within an hour or so, her son has $50,000 in cash wired from this developer into his bank account. That's just one of the allegations in this newest round of these pay for play accusations against her. But we have to understand how close she was to the mayor. Her husband was on the police force when the mayor was a police officer for many, many years. So they bonded that way. She was called the Lioness of City Hall, basically because of the power that she wielded. And you know, Carell, as you see a lot of these elected officials and politicians, many of them, they'll have a chief of staff. They might have somebody who's a top aide who's like a gatekeeper. They'll have another person that deals with the media, their communications director. She basically was the person for many, many years for Mayor Adams, going back to his previous position, a multi-term borough president in the borough of Brooklyn, which is so big. If it was a city by itself, it'd be the fifth largest city in the United States. So she was extremely close to Mayor Adams. She was known to be the one that if you wanted to get something done, if Ingrid Lewis Martin did not want it done, it was not going to happen. She was and is fiercely loyal to Mayor Adams, but this comes as a tremendous blow to him, especially this week, because he's opened his first campaign office in Manhattan. This was rather late, according to political experts, for him to be opening it. He's still dead last in the mayoral poll of the major candidates that are running, including the Republican candidate. And it's mind blowing. I mean, $50,000 in cash to a developer, and this was also, there were multiple indictments. There were multiple people that were involved in these indictments, including other people who were not household names, who people didn't really know, like Jesse Hamilton, who was in a general services administration, which sounds kind of vague and benign, but that's basically one of those agencies that you need to deal with if you're trying to get developments and things like that done. And one of the other allegations, which I'm not quite clear how it was, what the pay for play was for, but was for a cameo role in Forest Whitaker's hit series The Godfather of Harlem, where she played an extra in one of the scenes. There was money for catering services, renovations, all types of things in these indictments. And this came as an especially sharp blow to Mayor Adams, because also this past week, the Campaign Finance Board, which is the entity that decides whether or not a mayoral candidate will get matching funds for the money they received, declined to give him matching funds for the second time, basically saying that his paperwork was not in order, that there were a lot of irregularities, that it was just not properly done and submitted to them in a way that would make them feel comfortable giving Mayor Adams, he's the mayor of New York City, giving him that kind of money. So these are more allegations that are very disturbing to people. And the fact that she was so close to the mayor is continuing this dark cloud, these shadows that hang over him about all of these other top officials from his administration, from the Department of Education chancellor, who up until now in his entire career, over 30 years, David Banks, highly esteemed for helping young boys, particularly African-American boys in underserved communities, go on to college. All these investigations, the police commissioners, this revolving door that had been happening with the police commissioners, so many, three and basically in 3 years, and it's just raised so many questions. And so it's at a point where he's struggling to raise money. People are concerned about, I'm sure donors are considering, how can we give money to somebody when there's all these allegations? They certainly don't want to end up on a phone call that's being tapped or in any type of investigation. So this is a huge blow to him. And we've seen it in how he's operated in some of the moves that he's made with various policies and with his campaign. Ingrid Lewis Martin was much more of a she was much more than just this chief of staff. Her title was chief advisor, and she helped him flesh out these policies. Like when they decided to give the hotel rooms and all these benefits to the migrants, undocumented migrants, she was the one that made that happen and found the spaces and got the contracts. There's one allegation in one of these indictments about a sweetheart deal for one of the hotels that was housing the migrants, which we had rumors and reports in some cases where the city was being overcharged for these hotel rooms to house migrants. So it's really devastating. It's devastating for the mayor. It's like it was just about the time when people were saying, okay, the mayor was basically, his case is dead. His allegations of corruption are not going anywhere. Let's see what's happening. And then this new round, and these are very recent things from 2022, 2023. And also this investigation was done by Alvin Bragg, who is the Manhattan district attorney who has reportedly been funded in the past by the George Soros camp, which people aligned with him are reportedly supporting the top run, the front runner in the mayoral race right now, Zoran Mamdani. So it's just it could not have come at a worse time for him, Corral.
So, Lisa, there is so much to keep up with this because you've just, bullet pointed for us all of these allegations that have been really plaguing and following New York City Mayor Eric Adams for months now, something that Fox 5 in New York has been really on top of. I gotta ask you a question though. There was a particular bribery scheme apparently involving a potato chip bag. I'm not sure if we've mentioned that yet, but
no, you're reading that. Corral, no, I know. When I first heard this, I'm like going, oh, this has to be a joke. And then I'm looking like, is this one of these things that started on one of those, one of the parody, like on a parody X account or something, and then got it? No, absolutely not. And the other point I wanted to just finish up with Ingrid Lewis Martin was, and then even though she's going through these investigations, which you have to understand, until there's, and everyone does that covers these stories like you, when these investigations are going on, until there's some resolution, you're still under investigation. They're still digging. They're still looking. And this is exactly what happened with her. And yet she was still Ingrid Lewis Martin, still a volunteer in his reelection campaign. So what kind of judgment does that show, to have somebody that is facing that many problems still working with you? And then a second aide this week, this is the potato chip bag bribery. We've all seen the crime movies. We've all seen the crime shows. It's like a brown paper bag of cash, or if it's a more sophisticated type of gangster and he's wearing a suit jacket, they give him a fat stuffed envelope, or they give the woman a stuffed envelope and she puts it in her $4,000 Birkin bag or whatever she's carrying. And in this case, this was at the opening of his Manhattan campaign office this week. A former aide, Winnie Greco, who was the mayor's director of Asian American Affairs, and it's not alleged because she said that she did it. She was also forced to resign amid that round of allegations last week. She's currently under indictment on other corruption charges, and so basically she gave a reporter from the City and State publication, which the City, which is a very thorough. There's a lot of very experienced, seasoned investigative reporters that write for them, and they're very detailed reports. She gave this particular reporter, had a bag of potato chips, sour cream and onion, hers brand. We were told all the details. And the reporter, there's sometimes at these events, like a opening or whatever, there'll be water, there'll be food, that type of thing. I never take anything. We're told, I don't even take a bottle of water, like little water or whatever. Nothing. And so the reporter took it because she thought the bag had already been opened, and she was just saying, hey, you want some of these potato chips or whatever. So the reporter took the bag and said, oh, sure, thanks, or whatever. And then as she looks to open the bag, she sees this red envelope that has a $100 bill. There it is right there. You see the red envelope. It had a $100 bill, a number of 20s inside of it. and she immediately called her editor and said, "Hey, this is what happened." The editor immediately called the New York City Department of Investigation, about this. And when Winnie Greco, the woman who gave the reporter that particular bag with the red envelope, she said that, oh, it's customary in Chinese culture to give a red envelope with cash to people as a sign of appreciation. But hold on a minute. Okay, that may be a cultural explanation, but as a former political appointee, a former administration official in the Adams administration, I would bet, just like we do in the corporate world, the corporate media world, we have to go through extensive training about conflicts of interest, all sorts of other things, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, mostly not acceptable, that you cannot accept gifts. And so she should have known better, and nobody was buying that. She pleaded, she said, "Oh, it was innocent. It was an innocent gesture." But what was she doing at the campaign office opening when she's already under investigation, and for these other cases? And her case was federal. And why is she there? So the reporter calls the Department of Investigation. Now she's facing possible new federal charges with the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District, and it seems to be never ending. So when people thought, oh, okay, all of those headlines we saw at the end of last year, the beginning of this year, about corruption and all these officials, it just seems like the administration has been racked with corruption, through many multiple layers, which is very, very troubling to people if even half of these are accurate. Now, in her defense and in Ingrid Lewis Martin's defense, Ingrid Lewis Martin has a prominent attorney, Arthur Aidala. He's Harvey Weinstein's attorney. He's been on many major cases. He says he coined the term lawfare. We've heard about weaponizing the judicial system on the federal level. He says this is war. This is the law used to wage war. And Ingrid Lewis Martin is a victim of this. But it's just, these things are very plain for people to understand. You get a phone call, all of a sudden your son's got $50,000 in cash wired into his bank account. I mean, that's hard to get. The money in the bag. I mean, who ever heard of that? It's just, I mean, it's so clumsy. And then you have to wonder, like, who's making the decision that these people that are still under investigation are still involved with the mayor's day-to-day operations in his campaign? Who makes who's running things? So it's raising a lot of questions about his competency in terms of administration, in terms of administrating. And even people, I talked with community leaders this week, even community leaders that were like, I wanted Eric, Mayor Adams. I was hoping Eric was going to just come through and really, be out in the community, which he has been more these past couple of months as the campaign is heated up. I wanted him to be out there, but he's still lagging far behind in the polls, and he just got the second smackdown from the campaign finance board about getting money in. September's right around the corner here, Carell. So it's really looking tough for him. But you have to shake your head when you're going like these decisions. I mean, it's just mind-boggling.
Lisa, for a moment there, I forgot that we were talking about an actual news story, and I thought you were telling me about a new show that you're watching on Netflix, because it's just there's just so much happening here. I mean, I can barely keep up, but
we can barely keep up. I mean, we're all we have we're on Slack. We're on Slack here at Fox 5. We're texting each other back and forth, and we're like, hey, I was just here. I heard this. Verifying things, and all of that. And our political reporter Morgan McKay is keeping very busy with all of this too. But it's like we have multiple reporters on these stories because there's just so much so much happening.
And there seems to be a new thing coming out every week. And like you said, these elections are so close now. So I mean, we'll have to see, I guess, what happens. But he is ranking dead last in the polls in comparison to the other candidates for this mayoral race. Fox 5's Lisa Evers, we always appreciate your time here. Always a good time to have you. And thank you for breaking it down for us. A lot that we had to touch on. But of course, we're going to check in soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, Carell. Have a great day.
Of course, you as well.